Hey, how's it going, everybody? Ernest White II here on the Fly Brother Radio Show with a wonderful woman, Ms. Beth Santos. You are an entrepreneur and community builder. You have set out and have been disrupting travel for women worldwide. Founder and CEO of Wanderful, which is an international collective of travelers and travel content creators on a mission to make travel better for all women. You're the creator of the WITS Travel Creator Summit, which is a leading event for women and gender diverse travel creators, the annual Bessie Awards to honor women of impact in travel. And it's the first major outdoor festival, travel festival by and for women. That's the WITS event. Is that correct? Women in Travel Summit. Okay.
Wanderfest is the world's outdoor festival. Yep.
Sorry, this is me stumbling over the punctuation. And
Grammar.
yeah, which I used to teach. And so, you've been recognized and awarded throughout your career, and you are now the author of Wonder Woman, How to Reclaim Your Space, Find Your Voice, and Travel the World. You are also the co-owner of Ula Cafe, which is an inspired cafe and community hub in Boston. You're doing all the things, Beth. I am so honored, impressed, and appreciative of not only knowing you as a colleague in the travel space, but also as a friend. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Highlight of my day.
Mm-hmm. All right. I love that. Thank you. We love being highlights. So first, I want to ask about the Bessie Awards, simply because Bessie is kind of an old school name, and so could you tell us a little bit more about that award and how it was named?
So the Bessie Awards honor women and gender diverse people of impact, as well as the brands that are making a difference for women in travel. It started in 2019. We host it during WITS weekend, so during the WITS Creator Summit. And so first of all, I want to point out that, and one of the things that I talk about all the time is that women dominate the travel industry in terms of decision making. We make 85% of consumer travel decisions. We are above and beyond traveling more. And yet, when it comes to leadership, women are so sorely underrepresented. And so what I wanted to do was to create a show that could honor the impacts that women have had, because we have had so many impacts, even though we're not finding ourselves in the senior leadership roles at the board table, like in that space. But there are so many great creators, there are so many great entrepreneurs, and there are so many good initiatives that businesses have started. So the Bessies was created as a space to honor that. It also is such a feel-good event. We go in and it's like, this isn't just about the finalists. This is about all of the accomplishments we've done, like creating space for us to all sort of recognize the struggle and the challenge of making our voices heard in this industry, but then giving ourselves time to celebrate that. Now, who is it named after? The Bessies are named after Bessie Coleman, who is the first African-American and first Native American woman to earn a pilot's license. And her story is phenomenal because she wasn't able to do this in the US. She actually had to, and this was in the early 20s. Oh my gosh, I'm like blanking now of when it was. She went to France in order to get it because the US would not permit her as a Black woman to get her pilot's license. So she basically was like, well, forget all of you. I'm going overseas, moved to France, picked up French, didn't even speak it, got her pilot's license, came back to the US. And then everyone was like, oh, actually, we love you. We think you're so cool. And she was like, having none of that. And my most favorite thing is that she would put on these air shows and she was the celebrity. And she would say at the air shows, I'm not allowing anyone to come unless they're open to an integrated audience. So she was fighting back against segregation in her shows and using the battles that she had to go through in order to create the spaces that she wanted to. So that for us really spoke to this environment of not just honoring women of impact in travel who have had to remove so many barriers, but then women who are taking their own power to help others. And she passed away early. She had a short life. And so I thought it was such a great way to honor her. And I'm so grateful that in the last few years since we've had the Bessies, she's become more and more known too. When we first started it, a lot of people hadn't heard of her before, and she's kind of making it into the mainstream a little bit more, which is fantastic.
Listen, thank you so much for being a part of that. She was one of my heroes, certainly. She actually died, I believe, during an air show in my
That's
hometown
right.
of
Oh my
Jacksonville,
gosh,
Florida.
in your hometown?
Yes, yes. So
Wow.
there is a legacy there. And
Yeah.
I really, really just appreciate that you have been a promoter of and an amplifier, not only of her legacy, but of women who are equally pioneering. I know it may not necessarily be in like a socio-political kind of way, just because times are different, but certainly every little bit helps. And to continue to highlight and amplify and celebrate women
Oh,
who
absolutely.
are, being the change. I really, really just remain in awe of that. What do you feel like is the reason that you have been so passionate about doing the work? You don't just kind of think, this would be a cool idea, but you actually implement and execute, which means you do the harder thing.
Uh,
What do you think is in you that kind of keeps that happening?
I don't know, like a missing gene or something, like something wrong with me. No, and okay, and let me add one thing
Mm,
that I forgot to add, which is really important. At the Bessie Awards, I was talking to Deisha Dyer, who is the former social secretary for President Obama. She was a
okay.
keynote speaker at WITS. She ran a nonprofit called Be Girl World that helped inner city high school students in Philly and in DC travel abroad. It was super cool.
Mm,
Now she runs a social impact consulting firm called Hook and Fasten. And she said to me, she's like, Beth, do you know like who the other Bessie is? And I was like, what do you mean the other Bessie? She's like, do you know Bessie Stringfield? There's a whole other Bessie that has made history, who's Bessie
okay.
Stringfield, who's the first African American woman to ride solo on her motorcycle across the US. And I was like, why? I don't know why. So you said Bessie is an old fashioned name. Apparently, it's also like a trailblazer name because it's
Hmm.
all these women and women of color who are like changing dynamics. So I just love that. Now I'm like, let's call it the Bessies, and we're just celebrating every badass woman named Bessie because apparently there's so many of them. But also, so you're asking about how is it that I'm making all of these things happen? Why? I don't know. I think there is so much missing in this
Mm,
world to honor this work. And I have always been a creative person. Wanderful started as a travel blog. I didn't really start it with a business intention
sure.
initially. I just wanted to write about my own story. I was traveling solo. I was living overseas. I was writing about it for family and friends, but then also using it to process the experiences that I was having. And I think just in experiencing my own life and the trajectory of this world and realizing how alone I felt in those early
Mm,
days, not knowing how many women actually are traveling out there. I think that just kind of lit a fire in me to help women feel seen, and to help give them that recognition in all of the things that we do, but especially in showcasing how much travel can be great for them, but also how many of them are already going out there into the world and creating space for that. And so I think that has always kind of been at the very baseline of my work is let's make sure that these stories are being told, that women are feeling represented the way that they actually are in this space. And I don't know. I just love launching stuff. So I think I just have like a weird addiction to starting new businesses.
Oh, that's amazing because you've got the perfect storm going on there. It's like all of these different elements that have come together, and you continue to build and grow and expand and uplift as you do. You bring people along with you, and I think that's the
Thanks.
part that is the most. I don't know. You as a I don't know if you would call yourself a serial entrepreneur. I would certainly call you a mogul. But you've
Oh, I like that.
always well, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
you've always been in our interactions very open, very engaging, very approachable. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Cool.
also the beauty of it. You're like, I can be successful and I can help others and I can still have a humane kind of loving way as I interact with people.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is one of your superpowers is your
You
ability
know,
to engage.
I I love and appreciate that, and especially coming from you. I think in in my years, one thing that I have come to maybe learn and reject, I went to business school. I
Hmm.
went through this whole journey, in my 20s of you have an idea, well, you're not supposed to talk about it or somebody might steal it. I've gone through the journey of pitching for venture capital and high growth and a dog eat dog world. And I am tired by that world. I refuse to subscribe to that world. I think there's so much pie to be had. We're literally swimming in pie, and yet we're fighting over our little pieces of the pie every day. I think
Mm.
there's the market moves too fast for any one person to really hold on to it. That the best thing we can do is work with each other, share ideas with each other, inspire each other, support each other, and hopefully that contributes to the common good even more. So I think I think that this idea of oh, business has to be so protected and hush hush, and it's all about me. I think that's a very old and outdated way of thinking about business. We all need each other. We all use each
Right.
other's platforms and technologies and things in order to build our own. And so, yeah, I'm absolutely an open book when it comes to building business, because I think that that's our responsibility as humans, to give each other as much helpful information as we can so that we can all move farther along.
Hmm. Collaboration versus competition.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I love that. And I would say, when I look at again what you're creating, Wanderful, for example, Fly Brother also started off as a blog. So I understand how just
Hey,
the desire to
yeah.
tell our own stories
Yeah.
has kind of led us to where we are operating businesses
Yeah.
and enrolling others.
Yeah.
You also reminded me of something that Lola Akinmade, the indomitable Lola,
Oh,
a good friend of mine, also doing
love
and
her.
yours, and also doing so many wonderful things. She would say repeatedly to me, "There's enough sky for every bird." So you're talking about the pie being, ample enough for everyone when they show up with just the desire to collaborate, to create, recognizing that it's all co-creation. Whatever we create is a collaborative process that requires other people, other bits of knowledge, and just other
Right.
ways of being. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think I wouldn't necessarily want to seat that in the divine feminine energy, quote unquote, but I do feel like, if we're looking at, because I don't want to get into duality, if you will, because we all
Mm,
have these things
fair.
within us.
Yep.
However, there's something to be learned and gleaned from that motherly, grandmotherly type of energy that
Yeah.
I think is what's at play when we do
Yeah.
more collaborating than competing.
Yeah. But I'm glad that you said that, because actually, so I just read Reshma Saujani's book, Brave Not Perfect.
Mm.
And I'm wildly exaggerating when I say I read it. I think I read 2 chapters and then I was like, on to the next thing. So caveat, there might be
Yes.
have been more. But it was one of those books where I was like, I get this thesis, I understand this, I subscribe to this. Now I'm going to read about organic farming. And but Reshma Saujani, who started Girls Who Code,
Mm.
and one of the big things that she noticed, and why she wrote this book, Brave Not Perfect, is because her belief, which I completely agree with, is that we teach our boys to be brave and we teach our girls to be perfect. And that's kind of that's
Mm.
the thesis of this book. And what's interesting is that I think a lot of times we, she possibly, again, maybe the other chapters had stuff that I missed, but I think we as a society understand this. We're understanding that, we're teaching our boys make mistakes and try stuff and jump into the thing and get hurt and whatever. And we're teaching our girls to be super binary about this, to be perfect and to do everything right and to be prepared and to not take risks. And a lot of times I think the takeaway is, girls, take more risks, be more daring, but I also wish that we would teach our boys to be more thoughtful and to be
Yes.
more empathetic and to be kinder and to be, to think about what we say before we say it. And I think sometimes that is still missing, that feminine mother energy that you're saying is so important for our boys as well. And now as like a mom of a boy, I'm like, I like feel this like even stronger, but we should teach everyone all of these values because they help us. And it's not just, hey, women, take on more of like, be fiercer in the boardroom. It's like, or let's teach, those fierce boardroom people to be a little bit more patient and kind and, and to listen better, because that might also be necessary too. So I think we can all benefit from that energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the both and, and certainly in my own experience, I've just seen where they both have been required, and sometimes simultaneously. That's balance. And,
Yes.
that's where I feel like, again, with the work that's being done, and even in the face of all the pushback on quote unquote wokeness and this and that and the other, like, honestly, who cares? No matter the thrashing around, that great grandmotherly energy is just like, oh, you done? Just let you have your temper tantrum, okay, and we're gonna get on with it now. So, like,
oh my God,
that was my mom and grandma anyway.
Are you finished? Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Still moving forward, and that's the patience that I have. That's the listening and the understanding that I have. Okay, you're triggered. Okay, so we're sitting and we're watching this. Okay, all right. Don't hurt yourself now. But anyway. So
I hear it.
in thinking about, Wanderfest, I want to talk about that for a little bit. It's an annual event, and who is encouraged to participate, and what are some of the activities and the experiences that participants would have?
Wanderfest is so fun. So it is like like WITS and Wanderfest together create like the official Wanderful mullet. So like WITS is the business and Wanderfest is the party. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Wanderful mullet. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So WITS is all about, focused on content creators and networking and partnership. And of course it's fun, but it's like, it's a professional event. Wanderfest is all about sisterhood and community and joy and music and celebration. And it's just fun. So our last one that we did, we are looking for our next destinations. We don't have one yet, but the last one that we did was in downtown New Orleans, and it was at the waterfront. It was outside, and we had like a Bhangra dancing. We had the only all-female brass band in New Orleans play. We had the baby dolls, which if you're not familiar with like the New Orleans baby doll culture, it's all these women who dress up in like flamboyant doll kind of clothing, and they have umbrellas and they do these second lines, and they're a huge part of New Orleans's Black history. They did like this, it was like the biggest gathering of baby doll. I don't know if it was the biggest one. There were 75 of them, and they like came all, and like we did a second line, and we had every kind of, we did like a twerking class, and we had yoga, and we had a celebrate women marketplace, and it was all about like reclaiming and owning our space and our energy and being in community with each other and celebrating. And it is so fun, and we can't wait to get the next one going. I think it's, sometimes this space can get a little heavy, especially when we're talking about, discrimination, or we're talking about women feeling irrelevant or not being seen or heard. And I think Wanderfest was created as a way to just let some of that lightness through and just give us something to celebrate together and to be together with. And you bring your mom, or you bring your daughter, or you bring your best friends, and you have a whole weekend, and we're just in community with each other, having fun and learning and growing and dancing.
That's amazing.
It's
if it
really
ain't
fun.
twerking, it ain't working. And
yes,
and
it seems like you have experience with that, Ernest. That's
I don't. Listen. I don't have that skill.
No, I can't either.
Absolutely.
Nope,
I think people use that word inappropriately. They use it for all kinds of things that are not actually that. And so, you know, that's way above my pay grade. Because of the location of this podcast, I will not talk about my own personal experiences as a native Floridian with
there you go.
other, let's say,
visitors,
other visitors, as well as cultural traditions that stem from, you know, like West African fertility dances and that kind of thing. You know, it's got its lineage. And there's a certain way that we do it where I'm from, on top of cars and all that other stuff.
Oh my God.
We'll just leave.
So good.
That'll be for our at the after show.
I love it.
But I will say this: if anyone has had a look at the Puerto Rico episode of Fly Brother with Ernest White II, there is a twerk adjacent move that
I love
is
it
captured on camera, and that was not supposed to be in the episode, but my team recorded it and they edited it in, and I was like, that should come out, and it never became.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. But you know what was great was like, I'm like such a prude. Like I don't, you know, do stuff like that at all.
Yes.
And I was, you know, and then it's like we had and I remember when we were picking the different workshops and we're like twerking workshop, and I was like, oh, is that going to be like an insult to feminism? Like, are we going to be so, you know, like, I don't know, like, is that really the vibe I want? And we were talking with the woman who runs this class, and she was like, this is about you owning your body.
That's right.
You know, this is about you celebrating your body, and like, and you get to do whatever you want to do with it. And you have that freedom, and and the class was so positive and like body positive and encouraging. And I think there were a lot of women there who had like never done it before, you know, who are kind of like, I don't know, like, am I supposed to, am I the one who's supposed to, is this okay?
Yes.
You know, and to give people that agency and that permission was like so empowering, I think, for people to be like, this is my body and I'm going to like, you know, celebrate it. And I loved it. It was so fun. It was really, really fun.
You know, I think it just kind of speaks to the idea of dance in general and how, you know, when you're really that's right. Like we are taught to just hold ourselves together all the time. In general, you know, certain cultures allow for that flexibility more than others. But I think as a society in the US and North America, you know, you're judged when you just kind of let loose. And so, you know, and there's a lot of historical baggage behind all that. And to be able to just kind of let go, if it, you know, twerking, when you right size it into another dance, you know, as opposed to stacking on top of it all of, you know, what it's supposed to mean and the history and this and that and the other. I mean, just like, shake your rump, you know what I mean? Like,
shake your booty,
enjoy it.
It's,
you know?
fun.
Yes.
Well, and I think women, you know, and it's there's a nuanced story about that, but I think for women who, you know, who have been told for so many centuries to be that, you know, that they should be performing for the male gaze, and that they're, you know, that they are objects, and especially women of color. Like, so I think there is so much baggage in that. And I think in that way, it can be viewed as such an empowering thing to be like, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not doing this for you at all. I'm doing this for me because it feels good.
That's
you know?
Right.
So, we had, at the end of Wanderfest, we had a burlesque class that took place, that one of our New Orleanian members, like, she does this class, and I think like most of the people, I didn't end up making it because I think I was dead, but everybody who was attending was like, there were so many people packed in that room, and people were like, I've never been to a burlesque show. I didn't ever think I would go. And it's like all that really positive, like, energy was just, people had so much fun, you know? And I think that makes a difference when you're creating that kind of safe environment where people can feel vulnerable and they're trying new things. And to me, that's what travel is. It's about letting yourself try something new. It's about letting yourself step outside your comfort zone. It's about letting yourself learn. And if you can do those things wherever you are in the world, I think that is a travel experience.
Oh, amazing. And it's awesome that you have created with your team, with your community, this kind of a space for women and gender diverse people to feel at home, to feel safe.
Yeah.
to feel the ability to feel uplifted and supported
Yeah.
as they connect with themselves and
Thanks.
others. So,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you. Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
So, there's so many questions, so many
I
questions.
know. Sorry, I keep
No,
monologuing
it's
at
all
you.
good. You're awesome. Just what do you feel like has been in your personal life, just for you, the biggest impact that Wanderfest has had for you?
I think so. So the journey of Wanderfest has followed along with COVID a lot.
Mm,
When we had our first one, I mean, we've had a couple of iterations of it in the past, but then the New Orleans one, we actually had to put off 2 years. I think it was originally scheduled for 2020.
okay.
And so I think what's been very interesting for me is seeing the whole journey of this community that we've created. Wanderful being a predominantly online community, that has in-person events. And then WITS being a summit that's for content creators. Obviously, their businesses thrive online. And for Wanderfest, which is probably the most analog of all of them,
Okay.
it's like just getting together in person, just for, it can be for creators, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me personally, it's been interesting watching the desire for in-person experiences come back in the way that they have. I
Yes.
think what we've learned through COVID is that, we had this kind of like interesting thing where it was like pre-COVID, I think all of us were like overextended. And then COVID happened and nobody had anything to do. And we missed being in community with each other. And then for a few years afterward, we still kind of like didn't quite go out the way we did. And now I think there's just a different intention for the people who kind of like have been through this in their adult years. We prioritize in-person experiences in a different way than we did before. And me too. And I think like I relish in my offline time more than I
Yes.
think I ever did before. And I relish in those really rich human connections that I can make. And so I think Wanderfest has been the most nurturing in that way of saying these are people who have signed up to be in person with each other, in community with each other, who have flown from all over for that experience, for that moment. And that says a lot. Like when that many people all invest that much, and I don't just mean money, I mean like time and energy.
Yes.
And time is minutes of your life, by the way. Like let us not forget. For someone to invest that much and that many people, it creates this really sublime energy that I always carry with me, I think. And me just as a human, I think I like feel very nurtured from that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love it. I want to see so much more of it. I think that is like our secret weapon as humans sometimes, is just being in the space of other humans and not looking at a phone and not feeling like,
Yes.
and just being present in the moments that we can be present in. And I think it can be hard to find those sometimes. And so when we do
Mm.
find them, we really have to lean into them.
Absolutely. I think what really was resonant for me there was just the connectivity component of in real life engagement. That is to
Yeah.
me that's the most beautiful thing about being on this planet, is connecting with others
Yeah.
and in energetic alignment.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something that you created the opportunity for yourself first, right? Because if you weren't getting that,
Right.
for yourself, there wouldn't be, I think, the same kind of drive and commitment to and belief in what this community provides. So,
Yeah.
thank you for showing up in that way for yourself.
Yeah.
And in
Aw.
thinking about that, how then do you, as as someone with a wondrous soul, how do you then balance that with running a brick and mortar cafe
Yeah.
and creating with your husband a family?
Yeah.
And yeah, how because I know I am curious to know just personally how I can kind of balance that myself. I know others as well.
Yeah, everybody asks me that question, and like I literally do not have a good answer. I have no idea, or like, oh, how do you do all these things? I'm like, I don't know. I just
Do it.
do them.
Mm.
Yeah, I just do them. I don't know. I like, how do you do your things? I think
Mm.
we just do things differently. I don't know. We look at our tasks differently. Maybe I'm faster. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't like. And they're like, oh, well, you must not sleep. No, I sleep 8 hours a night. To sleep. Maybe that's it. Maybe I get
I
too much
love
sleep
the
and then I
sleep.
have like so much energy. I just don't know what to do with it all. I don't know, but
Mm.
I think some of it has to do with so a couple things. One is I had a business school professor who said we all have the same number of hours in a day. We all have the same number of hours in a week. So, nobody's engineering time. That's not, a thing, and nobody should ever believe that. What you do with your time, that's that's where you have room to innovate, right? Everyone has a finite amount of time otherwise. And so he's like, what do you do in your whatever 24 times 7 is? That was that number. 24 times 7 something. 24 times 7 168. What do you do in your 168?
Sorry, I'm
And so
laughing
I
because
think
I also would have to look up that. I'd have
I
to
was like, I
figure.
don't know, I wasn't do that live on a podcast. I'm not that good. um so I think that, I think a few things. I think number one, I think you have a lot more energy when you love what you're doing. I do
Mm.
believe that. I have had jobs where I'm counting the minutes down until I have to leave. This is not one of them. So I think that I do get a lot of energy just from inherent motivation in the work that I'm
Yes.
doing. And that goes for the cafe too. I love that cafe. Obviously, that goes for my family. I think delegation, I think becoming a mom actually has helped me. And like, we have this joke among like moms of three, right? But, like anyone with many children, you're just like, oh my gosh, how do they do it? Well, you have to do it, right? So you find out really quickly what's very important and what is not important. And you prioritize the important stuff and you either delegate or you leave behind the not important stuff. I actually believe very much in laziness as a tool. Like people think, oh, I'm being lazy, I'm not doing the thing. I was like, that's your mind subliminally telling you that that thing is probably not that important.
Mm.
Because if you can't get yourself to do it, then I don't know. I think you should lean into that and figure out, okay, well, if I can't do that, what is an easier way to accomplish the same thing that I wanted to? Or who can I pass this along to so that they can get it done so that I'm not the bottleneck? So I think noticing those moments when you're pulling back or you're taking a long time to do something or you're being a bottleneck is you kind of telling yourself there might be a better way to do this. And I think we prioritize in our society, we equate working overtime, like we equate quantity of work with quality of work. And I fully disagree with that. I think that there are ways to do things in shorter periods of time. And it doesn't mean that, if you spend 25 more hours doing it or you take a sleepless night doing it, that you're necessarily doing a better job.
Mm.
Maybe, but I think that's like a false norm that we've created, that like, oh, if you're staying late, if you're working extra, if you're exhausted at the end of the day, you must be more dedicated or working, more. You might just be really bad at prioritizing. Maybe that's why you're working through the night on the thing, because you haven't prioritized effectively. So all of these, I mean, this is like me trying to grasp at the straws of like where this comes from, but I think creating systems that work for me,
Okay.
being efficient, when I'm not efficient, understanding why, building a team and delegating. I could never do any of this on my own. And I think making sure that, when you wake up in the morning, you're doing stuff that energizes you as best as you
Mm.
can, and if you're not in that place and you can't get to that place, finding something that does energize you, that can get you through the day, that maybe isn't your job. That's probably where I'd start.
Well, there's probably where I'd start. There's a lot in there. There's a lot in there, but I really, I mean, I think some of the main takeaways for me are that when you have the awareness of knowing, like, okay, I need to get some support here. And
Yeah.
figure out a way to do that. Be that, however that shows up. If it's paying someone to do something, great. If it's, trading something, but just team
Yeah.
building, delegation, like you said, being aware
Yeah.
of how things are showing up in your life in terms of what I'm perceiving you to say is like a natural priority, quote unquote,
Yeah.
where they kind of
Yeah.
slot themselves in.
Yeah.
Getting your sleep, which means
Yeah.
prioritizing your own kind of health and well-being. And then
Yeah.
also, you didn't say this, but I feel like, and you please let me know if I'm misreading, but I think you have an innate understanding of knowing that you kind of can have all of these things that you want, that, you
Yeah.
created a life that is all
Yeah.
encompassing. And I
Yeah.
feel like in order to do that, the basic understanding and knowing that it's possible, and that
Yeah.
you don't even have to have all the knowledge of the steps. You just have to
Yeah.
know how to bring in the right people, and
Yeah.
it will unfold.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. I think
no?
that's
I know.
beautiful.
Mm.
What's funny once, I remember in business school, I was in this fellowship program and we had this leadership coach, like this really high quality. They basically had brought in the super high quality leadership coach. We did these like super expensive, fancy assessments, and it was all like funded through this fellowship program. And I remember, and I was really struggling. Like I really struggled in business school because I was running Wanderful full time. So I was
Mm.
paying my way through business school, which I am still paying for.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, what kind of company is Wanderful? Because to the point of our earlier part of our conversation, there's a lot of pressure to like grow, or raise venture capital, like pitch, kind of like do that, eventually exit. And I didn't know what I wanted. And I still remember our coach, Paul Corona, he sat me down and he was like, Beth, you are in one of the best business schools in the world. He's like, you are smart. You've clearly gotten yourself to where you are today. He's like, there is absolutely no reason in my mind why you should not get everything you want out of your life.
Mm.
And like the way he said that, it was just like, it was almost like somebody had given me the the like validation that I wasn't missing something.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I think sometimes in the back of our head, we're like, well, maybe, and this is why I went to business school, because I was thinking, well, maybe I've missed some important component of business that is going to like help me. I need to go to school for this because like I
Yes.
don't know it. And this makes me like a kind of lesser entrepreneur or whatever. And like that sentence in this strange way gave me this validation of like, there is not anything missing here. So I feel smart enough to figure out whatever I don't know from here on.
Mm.
And I don't know, when I say it out loud, it sounds very cocky, and that's not what I mean. But I think there is like a trust that I've developed with myself over the years of just, have I failed? Of course. People are like, tell me one failure. I'm like, one. I think I failed like 60 times today. Like,
Mm.
I don't even know if I could outline one. But so I think I fail all the time, but also I have succeeded enough times that I'm like, okay, I'm smart enough. I can figure this out. And I believe that about a lot of people. I think sometimes you just need to have that confidence of like,
Yes.
I just need to figure it out. I can do it because I am smart and I can figure this out, but I just have to. And I think that also allows me to prematurely jump into things, which
Mm.
sometimes is a bad choice, but sometimes is a good one, of just not feeling like I have to have all my ducks in a row, where I say, oh, this thing doesn't exist yet. Well, I'll start that and hopefully it'll work out.
I love it.
So, and I hope that more of us can do that we can have that confidence of, I'm going to, ask the questions, and I'm going to know what questions to ask, and I'm going to trust that I'm smart, and, and I can learn. I am a breathing, living human being that can always learn. And I might not know everything now, and I might not know everything in the future, but I can get myself from one point to another. And I believe in my competency in doing that. And I think that helps, to your point.
No, that's incredibly powerful to hear. And, it's a practice and it's a habit that I've gotten into myself. It's, okay, to people who don't have that understanding of their own capabilities, competencies, gifts, talents, it may seem cocky. but to those of us who've been dragged through the mud in order to get to a place of confidence
Yeah.
and be able to understand, like, actually, no, I do kind of show up powerfully, not over anyone else. It's just my
Right.
own kind of knowing of who and how I am, and that everyone has this within them. That is
That's right.
essential, you know,
That's the
and
thing,
yes,
is that everybody is going through that same thing. It's not, I mean, there are
absolutely.
some people that have been just like born like cosmically cocky.
No,
Like that's not who we're talking about,
yeah, right.
but most of the people, right, is like, I'll have conversations where I'm talking to somebody who is like such a mentor for me. And then they'll say to me like, wow, I'm really impressed by what you've done, Beth. And I'm like, no, I'm the one who's impressed by what you've done. The way we perceive
Yes,
other people,
yes,
we're always looking at other people as like, oh, well, you figured this out. And they're like, well, but you know how to do this. There's always going to be something that we don't know and that we're learning.
sure.
And I think to have confidence in your ability to learn is probably like one of the best skills that anyone can have.
Absolutely. Know that you are worthy of, that you are capable of, and that you can have all of everything you want. And yeah, it might mean falling on your face multiple times over and over
Yeah.
again. But with that knowing, I take it back to when I talk about this with, others. It's like a child that's learning how to walk falls.
Yeah.
Sometimes the mother helps the child up. Other times the mom stands back and watches the child get up themselves. And it's the both and of that. But
Yeah.
either way, there's that innate knowing of, I can do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really think that you embody that. And I appreciate, again, your just kind of thinking through that as you described it to us.
I call it live processing.
Sure,
Right. Who needs
sure.
to have the answer? Just kind of,
That's
talk
right.
through it and maybe you'll come up with something nice at the end.
Yeah. Well, listen, and that's trust as well. That the right thing always comes out. So this again, we could talk all day, and I want to make sure that the audience is getting gold, which they are already. So thank you. When it comes then to, you've got two things that I want to touch on before we wrap, and the first one is your Travel Creator to Entrepreneur Accelerator, which I
Mm.
think is an opportunity to help other people when they reach a certain point in the
Yeah.
knowing of, I can do this.
Yeah.
You and other, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? You're able
Yeah.
to bring some of your knowledge. You want to help people not fall on their face necessarily as hard or as often,
Right.
in making themselves or growing into entrepreneurship, not just the creative component, but the business side as well. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think so. The Travel Creator to Entrepreneur Accelerator is a 6-week accelerator that I'm launching for creators who want to get serious about the businesses that they're building. And I think there's a lot to that. I'm going to try to keep that short, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of creators don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. Maybe because they're not told that they're entrepreneurs, or because they think that they're missing some fundamental entrepreneurial piece
Yes.
of information like I thought I was. Um, or because they are constantly told by the platforms that market to them that they need that platform in order to succeed. And as somebody who has gone on this journey myself and has turned, a blog into a business and has dated some of the platforms that exist now that tell you that you need them in order to survive and be relevant, I wanted to create something that was not only a guide to helping you figure out what the revenue streams were for you, but was also deeply embedded in a lot of the basic business school and entrepreneurship theory and practices, which I think that my hope is to do a couple things with that. Number one, to give people the confidence that I was missing when I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I need a business school education in order to do this, and that's why I can't do it. I want to give them like all the nuggets from that so they can be like, now I too have this information and don't have to feel like, I needed a business degree. You might still get one for any number of reasons,
Sure.
but let's like kind of like, take away the smoke and mirrors of that. the other thing is, I think there is so much to learn from entrepreneurship education that can then be applied. And I want creators to start seeing themselves not as like a one trick pony, like a one channel, creator, but as somebody who has an audience that follows them for a reason. And that audience is not just audience, it is a possible customer base. Like it is a customer base. They are your customers for some way. Maybe they're not spending money on you, but they're spending time on you, which we mentioned as minutes of their lives. So they're investing minutes of their lives into a relationship that they have with you as a creator. Now, how can we turn that into something that's actually fueling your wallet much better and allowing you to continue on this journey and to actually build something that's solving problems and creating meaning? And there's so many different ways you can do it, and so many different ways you can really diversify and grow and see yourself in this space as a proper entrepreneur, as somebody who can create many different forms of revenue that work. And so that's what the Creator and Entrepreneur Accelerator is. It's 6 weeks. It's live. This is not a self-guided course. This is not like a bunch of videos that are going to drop in a drip campaign. This is me talking to you. We're going to like break out into groups and do stuff and come back and report. This is like a class. But it's also, I want to be like real with people about the expectations of this and what it's going to feel like and be like. And, this is not a get rich quick. I'm not saying you're going to go from $0 to $1 million in revenue by the end of the 6 weeks. You're going to have every reason to succeed. You're going to have advice from one another. You're going to workshop things together. We're going to bring in experts. We're going to talk about theory. We're going to talk about things that you haven't talked about before. And then you're going to come out of it with a business model canvas, which is like the new business plan, some revenue strategies that have been tried and tested, and a really cool community of people who've been through this with you. And that's the hope, is like, let's get more people into this space of owning their own thing and building careers off of that beyond just, hey, I'm going to post on Instagram and hope that the algorithm, anoints me today.
Awesome. Thank you again for showing up for people and helping to elevate to the next level, creating something that is not only useful, but impactful and leads to greater community connection. So how can people find out more about the accelerator?
Yeah, they can find it on the Wanderful website. So that's sheswanderful.com, SHES, Wanderful with an A.com/accelerator. It's right there, and the signups are open.
Excellent. Then your book, Wander Woman, How to Reclaim Your Space, Find Your Voice, and Travel the World. Any thoughts that you want to offer in addition to telling folks where they can get the book?
Yeah, so the website is thewanderwomanbook.com. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Bookshop. A lot of independent booksellers have the book, so just stop into your bookstore and ask for it. Even if they don't have it, ask for it, and then they'll order it. Libraries also have it in the US and Canada. It's also available in the UK, I believe. And it is a book, I call it a travel guide meets manifesto. It's for women who want to explore their world, want to do it solo, and maybe are afraid, maybe have never done it before, are looking for next steps. It's definitely written as an intro book, but I've had a lot of very experienced travelers who have read it, and there is a supportive voice in that book that I think everyone can really benefit from. And there's some nuggets in there too. But I think there's so much that people can take away to help give them the confidence to see their world differently, to get out there and travel, to find travel where they are, not necessarily going so far. And some really nice lessons about what travel is, the misperceptions about what solo travel is for women. There's a whole chapter on safety and how problematic our safety narrative is when talking to women. So I recommend everyone pick up a copy and check it out. I've actually had people buy it for their teenage sons, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. That to the point of teaching our boys and teaching our girls the same, let's teach our boys about women in travel and the bad messages that women are being told about being alone and why that's happening. So I hope everyone is able to pick up a copy and feel inspired by it.
Well, it's helping to create the world that we want to live in.
That's right.
And, everyone, that's just the knowledge, the understanding that we can share with future generations, as well as the people that are already here and out and about. Beth Santos, the 4 C's of life: confidence, community, culture, and creation. Thank you so much for showing up as powerfully as you do. This was a wonderful chat. And
I love it.
yes, so thanks for being here. I'll send everyone to sheswanderful.com for more. And yeah, you are awesome and amazing. So
Thanks for having me.
Of
This
course.
was so fun. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.